So when we get to this position, we want to keep our opponent off balance, right? So if he starts getting really good base, this is when he's going to start peeling my feet off, starting to pass my guard and do all kinds of stuff I don't want him to do. So there's a couple of different ways you can keep him off balance. You either want to use your knees to start off balancing him this way to make him move, or if he starts coming into me, I can start pushing him away with my far leg. Yeah? So you can either push on the far leg or just extend this way to get this way. As soon as he starts coming back in, I can off balance him again. Okay, sometimes you get a sweep, sometimes you don't. But the main thing I want to do is disrupt his base. I don't want him to get settled here, okay? So once I feel like I've off balanced him enough times, I'm gonna try and get control of his far leg, okay? Sometimes you will be able to just off balance him without controlling the far leg and sweep, but the most high percentage way to finish the sweep is to control the far leg and just simply bridge, and he'll start to fall, okay? When we're in this position, guys, the most common type of attack you can do on your opponent's leg is straight ankle lock, okay? The cool thing is we don't have to really do anything with our legs to finish this, as far as changing the orchestration. All we need to do is get a good bite on his foot. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift my hips away slightly so I have enough space to get my elbow back, and I'm trying to get my wrist close to his Achilles tendon, okay? What you don't want to do is try and straight ankle lock him on the back of his calf, yeah? So there's different ways people do it. Some people keep their arm very shallow like this and go very low on the toes. What I like to do is I go slightly deeper. So I'm still very, very low on his foot, but I go quite deep with my arm. So my elbow, I'm almost elbow deep. And from here, that allows me to grab the shin, okay? Once I get my grip, the main thing I want to start doing is bringing my elbow close to my ribs, okay? So if I try and finish from here, Jordan can probably resist quite well. But even if I'm just using one hand and I start walking my elbow behind my ribs, from here it's very easy for me to finish, okay? And let's say I didn't have Jordan's foot here, just so I can show you, I've got all of this range of motion, okay? So one more time, just with the straight ankle lock. I get my hips away slightly. The reason I don't do it from here is because it gets all a bit bunched up and it's hard for me to work down his leg. So I shoot my hips away slightly and I start working my arm deep and shallow. When I say deep and shallow, I mean deep, so elbow deep, but shallow on his leg. From here, I get the grip. I bring my elbow to my ribs, and I'm using not just my upper back and my arms, but also my hips to finish. Second attack you can do from this position is the outside heel hook, okay? So again, you can keep this standard Ashigarami configuration with your legs, but exposing the heel from this position can be quite difficult. So one thing you can do is start reaching over the top, either over the top of his calf or over the top of the knee. And from here, I'll start putting my foot on the floor and lifting both knees towards the sky. From here, I put my foot back on his hip and I capture his heel, all right? When you're capturing the heel, you always want to capture his toes just below your armpit. So you don't want the toes all the way in the armpit, because what happens is you can't get a very good bite with this part of your arm, right? On his heel. So instead, you want to catch his toes somewhere around here, just above your elbow really. And then you get his heel nicely on your wrist. So you kind of want to aim for this kind of area on your wrist and this kind of area on your arm. So from this position we've landed in, it's quite hard to expose his heel. So I'm going to control the knee, point my knees up, put my foot back, and then I can capture his heel. From here, I can come back to the same position. Gable grip, okay? Very important that the hand on bottom, your thumb is pointing up. If my hand's pointing this way, see how his heel touches the mat and it's quite loose now. When my thumb's pointing up, his heel's off the ground. So when I'm in this position, I can start going for the finish. All right, guys, so I'm just gonna go over the finish for the outside heel hook. There's different positions you can finish the outside heel hook from. This is just one. And the mechanics do vary slightly, but the principles basically stay the same. So one thing is I want my thumb pointing up, because if my thumb's pointing this way, one, it's easier for him to slip his heel. Well, that's a toe slip, but if you slip your heel, so push your foot in, yeah. So that's easier to do. And the other thing is his heel is closer to the ground, so there's actually less tension in his leg. When my thumb's pointing up, there's already tension I can feel in his foot, okay? So because I've got a good bite of this already, it's pretty much on. What I'm gonna focus on doing is lifting my hands up to my head, bringing my head down towards my hands, and now the main finish comes from bridging into the side of the knee. So I'm here, and I'm bridging in, okay? As I'm bridging in, I am pulling on the heel, but what you don't wanna do is just start rolling, because what happens is he'll roll with you, yeah? So come back. That's why it's important to keep this top knee heavy as well. So this knee is what's kind of stopping him from turning that way. If I lift my head up, he can turn that way. But if I bring my head down, now it's a lot harder for him to roll away from me. So bringing my head down as my hands come up, I'm hipping into the side of his knee, all right? So with this position, guys, it is a dangerous submission. All submissions are dangerous within reason, right? But what you want to avoid doing, especially if you're this guy, is you don't want to start turning this way, okay? Because that's just going to put the heel hook on. If you are going to turn anyway, you want to turn away from where my hands are. So if he's looking towards my hands, he doesn't want, no, come back. If he's looking towards my hands, what he wants to do is look away from my hands and then turn in that direction, yeah? So you're going with the momentum of this. You don't want to turn this way, okay? For you guys on bottom, do not just start cranking on this, because the problem with heel hooks sometimes is you don't really feel pain in your knee until something goes wrong. So for people who are on the receiving end of this, if your knee feels tight, right, so that you feel like your ligaments are tightening up, just tap. And if you're the person doing this, just put it on slowly. And if you really feel like someone isn't tapping, just let go. Because some people who aren't experienced won't tap until it's too late. Unfortunately, that's happened to me a couple of times where I've had someone in a situation where I thought they just, it wasn't on, but it was, and they've got injured. So be super careful in this position.